Welcome back, guys, to another Let's Play in Chill and History. We are going to be doing Marvel's Midnight Suns. I have not played this game. I know very little about this game. All I know is that to a certain degree, this is more of like an RTS style game.
Sleeping mother, sacred harbinger, awaken.
Which leaves me very curious.
What is yours? You who rise with the moon in darkness, who prepares the path for the midnight sun. Turn your merciless eyes.
I'm not the biggest Marvel fan. I'm more of a DC kind of person. But I do enjoy Marvel. And, you know, pretty much most of the Marvel Cinematic Universe up until probably Endgame. I mean, it was already going downhill, if I'm going to be brutally honest. Before Endgame, you could see the signs of it. But now it's just pretty clear, pretty apparent that Marvel's kind of just done at this point. At least in terms of the cinematic universe, unless Deadpool makes like $3 billion. But we'll see. But I really don't know a lot about this game. I don't know what this game is really all about. So this is going to be kind of like a blind playthrough to see what the story is all about. It's got interesting reviews, and I mean, you give me Marvel and real-time strategy and we're golden. I do think the big difference between DC and Marvel, though, which always kind of gets into certain aspects of comic books, is that DC tends to have these larger-than-life, really grandiose characters. That many of them are actually portrayed like almost like gods, and Marvel tends to have characters that I think are more grounded, more like real life people, at least to a certain degree, more so than others. I mean, like the best example is Spider-Man and Captain America. You know, just normal New York guys who are thrust into superherodom and basically have to do everything they possibly can to do what's right by, you know, by everyone and by people. I love Captain America personally, and obviously it's my favorite character, which is why, like, when I watched Civil War, the movie, I was really both excited and a little disappointed, because from my understanding, the original comic book arc was about government control versus individualistic freedom, which they kind of get into in the movie, but don't actually really talk about it. Because, like, it's a whole big thing about, you know, one's trust in government versus one's distrust in government. And I think that's sorely missed and really something that's unfortunately not really talked about. I mean, in the comic book, like, it gets to a point where it's like there's so much trust in government that Spider-Man actually ends up revealing his identity, you know, to the public, and then Captain America ends up basically almost dying or actually dying within the comic book arc itself. It's a very complicated story arc, and I don't know the whole details of it, but that's just from my understanding what it was. Okay. So this is the tutorial. How to play. Attack, skills, and heroics. Playing a card costs 1 card play. Selecting ability card, activated target, yada yada yada. Each turn you receive 3 play cards. Okay. Attack cards, damage enemies, and gain heroism. Okay. So then, okay, so I can just blast them.
Impressive.
Immediate death. Okay. So then I can blast this guy over here. I understand Iron Man's appeal. I'm just not the biggest fan of him. Doctor Strange is up and down for me. Oh, so it just damages every enemy. Okay.
That's the spirit.
That's cool.
They're not quite ready to give up just yet. So, who wants to go first? That suit may be a marvel of technology, but it's no match for the mystic arts. Allow me to demonstrate.
Oh, so it's a contest now. Then you take the extra creepy one.
Gladly. This won't end well for you.
Okay. It's a very weird game so far. I mean, I'm liking it. I'm just
I know that wasn't your signature.
interesting. I probably should have hit this other guy, to be honest with you.
That was really something. I
Sorcerer Supreme.
they're paying you enough for what's about to happen.
Sure, just keep throwing bodies at the problem.
Well, they really don't like Robo Man.
Shall we get on with it? Now that I have their attention, perhaps a blessing is in order. Something
Oh, they really don't like Doctor Strange.
Well, I could give you a hand, or a shield in this case.
in the spirit of cooperation. I'll accept your offer. Just this once.
Don't mention it.
Now, last time we were talking about presidents
Critical of your chances.
was Chester A. Arthur.
Strange.
A very complicated president for
Let's
some people,
try.
including myself. Just someone who there's so much about him that there's just creates this level of distrust. About,
This might help a little.
ah,
I won't forget this.
okay. Because on one hand, I don't think he's a bad man. I think I understand a lot of the things that he does, and it's difficult, especially back then with a lot of politicians, where not necessarily saying that they're justified in their behaviors or the things that they do,
Interesting.
but it is an understandable reality that things are a lot more difficult back then. Understand, like, we live in a very not necessarily saying the greatest society of all time, but we really do live in a very wonderful period of history where, like, we don't have to deal with people dying of cholera like back then. Like, we have wonderful medical
Guards in my parking garage.
people. We have wonderful, you know, just cost of living in relative comparison.
And while you ponder arrows, maybe we should just try throwing a big rock at him.
Use a rock.
I'm saving my energy so we need it.
Point being that, I mean, everyone has a friggin' smartphone nowadays, and it's not even funny how, how about,
Shouldn't take long.
Okay, so this one. Oh, I think I messed up. Like, people need to understand that, like, things were really good today, at least in terms of how life is, the things that we do have in comparison to back then, where cleanliness, like, people were dying of dysentery, like I don't think people really understand the realities of how things were back then. And if you wanted to make it, you did actually have to participate in society and become a proper individual, yada yada, and not be able to live that life, you know, to be able to live a leisurely life.
If I'm being honest, that encounter went better than I expected.
Tony, I've been noticing a recurring gamma spike.
You see, this is why you should
Like the thing, like, think about it. There's no air conditioning back in 1882, you know? So I'm basically just thinking back then, I don't want to live a life of poverty. I want to actually be able to support my family, be able to make money, be able to have a future, yada yada.
You don't say.
And I think people were willing to do a lot of very disturbing, ungodly things in order to actually get to the point that they ultimately end up reaching.
Put a pin in that.
I think Chester A. Arthur is just one of these individuals, you know? It's not like he grew up in poverty. He didn't by any stretch of the imagination back then, but you know, if you don't do anything, if you don't actually produce anything in society, you're not actually going to make it in society.
I really should up my homeowner's insurance. Miss Maxim.
So I don't think he was a bad man. I don't think he was a bad individual.
Steven, I can fight.
But certainly guided by principles that
Then show me by
I think are more likely and specifically not conducive for anyone who's trying to become the president of the United States of America. And I think that's how I'm always going to look at and remember Chester A. Arthur as just someone who squandered real opportunities to actually
Besides, we picked up some crazy
Okay.
gamma readings coming from, well, here.
Nope.
Guessing that explains the Hydra goons and ominous green lights.
It's hit you. Keep in mind, I have no idea what I'm doing in this game, so I'm kind of just winging it, so bear with me here, people.
Let's do it. You guys should talk to your union. I don't think you're supposed to be fighting on our level yet.
Use redraw to replace undesirable cards in your hand. Highlight a card, redraw, then hold to replace it. Okay. Oh.
Is it that time?
interesting tactic.
Why does Captain Marvel always have to have very short hair?
Really, I'm flattered, but save some for the others.
I like it when we're in control of the situation.
Use move to reposition the area of effect. Each turn you have one free move. Okay. Wait, how do I move? It's really not letting me move. Oh wait, do I have to highlight them? Did I mess up? Did I miss something? Okay. It's a little weird and finicky, but okay.
I hope this is one of the stronger arms. We did come all the way here for a fight. Follow my movement.
Think I'm doing this right. Oh, crap.
Oh, but Davenport was at least a century old. What a waste. Let's give it a go. Apparently our reputation isn't enough.
Maybe I should knock back. Okay.
So-called children of
We're learning.
That'll work. Does Hydra even pay you enough to cover your medical bills?
Is that all? Which arm are you guys again? Arm D, B team, third string?
Ugh, okay.
Things are moving right along. Defeating the forces of evil and all that.
Use what you've learned to wipe out.
Keep showing up.
Okay.
They are surprisingly relentless.
It's the new plan.
We must provide one at a time.
So I can double my current heroism.
Precisely what I needed.
Or I can move her, right?
At least monsters are wild and unpredictable. These
That was-
Ventimorphs have no gumption.
Big brain activity right there.
I'm on it.
Love the effort.
For the mother. Anyways, today we're going to talk about Grover Cleveland.
Ready to say
At least the beginning parts of it.
three of the world's strongest heroes, right? Doesn't
A very, very deeply fascinating individual whose life and career
Something.
Yes, Hydra has clearly raised their game.
is one that many people have been talking about today because, for those of you who don't know, the first president in the history of this country to actually win 2 non-consecutive terms was Grover Cleveland.
How much is Lilith paying you guys anyway?
I would also argue a very fascinating historical individual because he's probably the last objectively conservative Democrat in the history of this country. I mean, you could say Truman, you could say Kennedy, maybe. I personally wouldn't. That this new age, and those guys in particular were this new age and breed of liberal, liberal, I guess you could say at that time. Maybe Truman, but I think it's more likely that Grover Cleveland, objectively, by every metric that you can argue, was the last true objective Democrat president this country has ever had. He's also one that has lived a very fascinating life throughout his entire political career. A lot of things happen, a lot of good, a lot of truly horrific things and bad things happen during his time that should be at least noted, that I'm going to probably try and briefly talk about. He's one I've done quite a bit of research on too. There are a lot of books on him and a lot of material on him and a lot of thoughts and a lot of analysis on his 2 terms as president. And one that's just a very complicated presidency, and really him being president during this particular point in time, I think, shaped the future of this country probably more than just about any president. I know I say that a lot, but he's president for an influential in politics for a period of about 15 to 20 years that
Define stronger.
really make, like, you want to argue why unions are a thing. You could probably argue that it's partially in due part to his time during president, and a lot of the things that happen as a result of it. The period of time where we start going into, doing global international interventions and stuff, which I think he does try to stave off a little bit of it, where McKinley and then Roosevelt and then obviously Woodrow Wilson ends up becoming influential figures during this particular point in time. His 2 terms are very, very intimately interesting, and those 2 terms we're going to talk about.
And where is here exactly?
Salem, Massachusetts. Well, a pocket dimension in Salem, Massachusetts.
Oh, suburbs. Nice.
Welcome to the Abbey, home of the
Midnight Sun.
The hell is this? Lilith's Junior Demon League?
Wait, it's that jerk
So
from
Blade's there. Okay. This is weird.
Now, if everyone would just take a moment.
Enough.
Is that the new Ghost Rider?
You're standing on my flowers.
Been a long time, Sarah.
It's caretaker now.
If I could have avoided this moment, I would. But
Grover Cleveland
I
was
know
born
back.
around the 1830s.
Guess we're suddenly
1835, 1836. Basically around that particular point in time. Born in, he was a New Jersey kid. His father was actually a Presbyterian minister.
first battle against
His family history is pretty long.
the task was
Like his great grandfather
Make everything sound
Um,
lofty.
fought at like Bunker Hill.
My sister's only child
um,
weapon against her.
He's one of like 5, or no, he's the 5th of like 10 children that the Cleveland family had.
I did not write
Grew up pretty religious around,
I am no
really rambunctious young little Grover Cleveland, who does grow up to be a very portly young man.
Speaking of, it would help to have mental.
He was a little bit of a troublemaker back then, got into trouble a lot. His father didn't like it. Moved around quite a bit when he was younger too. Goes to New York, moves to New York. Oh, what the? So we actually get to create a character? Let's go with the Asian looking guy. God, I hate all these hairstyles. Oh, Lord. I'd rather just go with a buzz cut at this point. Okay. Sure. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Child of light and darkness, you who tame the night, hear the voice of those who beseech thee and
The collar! Wait! Wait! Ah!
mother.
So, that's a good thing, right?
Okay. Interesting. when he was younger, his father passes away pretty early in his life. I think when he's around a teenager, ends up he has a pretty good education. He's pretty smart. I think he ends up becoming a teacher for a little bit before he settles in Buffalo, New York. Buffalo is actually where he ends up becoming a pretty important individual there. Starts becoming a lawyer in New York around the 1850s. I think he worked actually at the same partnership Millard Fillmore worked at when he was younger. Something along those lines. One of the few presidents during this time that actually didn't fight in the war. It was basically you could either fight in the war, get conscripted, or you could pay your way out. I think he ended up paying his way out, which did hurt to a certain degree his legacy in a lot of ways.
Has it been so long?
My name's Hunter in this game. Okay.
I know this place. My dreams, it was always empty.
Despite well, I'll put it this way: when it comes to Grover Cleveland, he wasn't a very big individual in the high class, I guess, parts of society. I mean, he had a very, very, very active social life when he was much younger. He was more likely to be a part of bars, saloons, taverns, and stuff like that, rather than like the high-priced wine societies and stuff like that. So I think he really endeared himself to a lot of the Democrats at that particular point in time, and a lot of those particular individuals who still believed in the Jacksonian ideals. But he becomes a prominent individual within Buffalo politics, so much so that he actually ends up becoming the sheriff of, which at that time is very, very prominent and popular. I mean, he's in charge of basically most of the police department. Once he does his term at sheriff, he ends up opening his own law firm, his own law practice. Pretty much just does a bunch of different things around that particular point in time. He was known for his hard work ethic, commitment, and discipline in his law practice. Like, you want to find a good lawyer, it's probably him. I don't know which one to choose.
You appear quite versed in my history, Dampier.
Heard my fair share of stories from Caretaker.
My dogs.
Legendary hunter, child of Lilith, last champion of the blood. Some call him angel, some demon. Probably both. Led the Knights of Wundagore against the armies of darkness until you follow it. Shoot.
Sorry about this. I'm gonna go stop him real quick. Let me pause this.
Right. As much as I'd love to see how much wider this conversation can go, we should probably get moving.
Agreed. The prophecy is in motion.
Okay.
I can feel it. We've wasted too much time here already.
Man, the others are really gonna love you.
Others?
Yeah, you've got a little fan club, I think. But why spoil the surprise? Hope you're up for the challenge, chosen one.
I guess I'm the chosen one. Okay. Oh. What is this? I have no idea what I'm doing. Okay.
Did I miss something? Or didn't...
sure if you remember me, but we met briefly before. I'm
The witch who called me back from the grave.
Told you.
or Nico, but either works. And this is
Robbie Reyes. Oh man, never thought I'd be standing next to you. Got quite a rep. I mean, caretakers told us stories.
That's Ileana.
Привет.
And I think you already met Blade.
Of course. Caretaker has reformed the Midnight Suns.
Whoa.
Now, I should point out during this particular point in time, Grover Cleveland's a bachelor. He's in his 30s at this point, or 40s. Wait, 30, 40s at this point. When he's sheriff, pretty much there's this lady named Maria Haplin that he was courting or trying to talk to, and there's accusations of basically rape that creates a child.
Whatever the hell the Forge is. Have to say,
I don't know what happened. I tend to believe that.
Salem, it's pretty cozy.
I tend to believe back then probably it was likely true, to be brutally honest. Not to be rude to Grover Cleveland. I think it's abominable that happened. And in particular, it doesn't also help the fact that he ends up getting her sent to like an insane asylum. The children ultimately of hers basically get sent to an orphanage that he pays for. It's a lot of things that tend to really hurt the future prospects of Grover Cleveland in so many different ways. So I can select a mission.
Prophecies be damned. It's good to see that face again. You look like it was yesterday.
And you look older. How long was I in that crypt, Sarah?
No more than a few centuries. You were missed.
Centuries? And what of Lilith?
Fallen by your hand. Until now.
Yeah, so speaking of Lilith.
Tony?
What? The kid's literally speaking of Lilith. Tony. That's my name.
So, that's Carol and Dr. Spooky over there. Here to help.
Help with what, exactly?
Oh, I don't know. Throwing the magic amulet into the volcano? Smiting
I'll put
the
it to you this way:
dragon
if it happened today, all the stuff that happened with Grover Cleveland with DNA testing, it'd be a lot more definitive. But unfortunately, and it's a complicated issue too because, well, first off, his story doesn't make a lot of sense because it's like he's courting her, but she's also a complete belligerent alcoholic, quote unquote, and it's just like, why would you court her if it's that, if you're this proper individual or trying to be a proper individual? It's very, very difficult for me to believe that, and don't get me wrong, like, everyone's innocent until proven guilty, but this is one of those where it's probably true, and again, if we had today's technology back then, we could probably prove it. Beyond at least a reasonable doubt, which doesn't help him, and I just, that's something that's always going to be at least a negative, clear watermark on Grover Cleveland and his legacy. That being said, he still has some power, still has some prominence. In particular, he's just powerful in Buffalo, and in Buffalo, Democrats, like I said, New York is really all over the place. It goes back and forth, but Democrats still had a pretty big stronghold, and one of those strongholds was Buffalo. And in particular, a lot of people saw Grover Cleveland as a sheriff, as a up and up kind of like, I'm gonna fix these things, I'm gonna do all this, and ultimately he ends up becoming the next mayor of Buffalo. in the early 1880s.
With everything going on right now, we simply cannot afford to lose contact with the Sanctum or Wanda.
Crazy indeed.
Let's do it. I kind of just wish we would just play as all the Marvel heroes and not as this random person, but whatever.
Unless Bruce is right about gamma interference. Are you ready? The prophecy of the Midnight Sun does not linger, and neither should we. Lilith possesses the Darkhold. If she forced her way into my Sanctum Sanctorum once, I suspect she can do it again.
You are a sorcerer supreme. Can you not predict her movements?
Normally, yes. But since your mother reached the Sanctum, my sense of the future has grown voluminous.
Now, around this particular time, when he is mayor, he really cleans things up. He doesn't do this whole party politics thing, so he's basically like, well, if you're corrupt, and we're gonna weed out the corruption. And if you're not gonna use and abuse public funds for pretty much
Your sanctum will survive. We shall see to that.
Indeed.
pretty much just saving New York countless at that point, hundreds of thousands of dollars, in also renovating the city in a proper way and actually making things much better for people, governing as conservatively as humanly he can. And because of this, literally, he's only, I think, mayor for like maybe a year or two, and ends up getting a bunch of recognition and nominations to actually end up becoming the governor of the actual state of New York. Okay.
About time.
Not just about time, Mr. Brooks. Time, space, reality, the building blocks of magic. All must be constant for my portals to work properly. Yet as we now know...
When he's nominated, he's not even the first choice. The Democrat political machines were pretty strong. But again, things getting in a heated headlock because of the differing factions within the Democratic Party and Republican Party at this point too. Pretty much allowed Grover Cleveland to be the compromise candidate. Ends up getting first place, ends up winning the election of governor in 1882-ish, 1883-ish. And immediately, within like the first 3 months, he's vetoing like 15 bills. He's like, why are we spending this money on this? This is stupid. You know, this is ridiculous. Why are people paying 5 cents to ride a train? You know, like little things like that. He's basically making sure people actually have financial help and support within the state, which is also aided to a certain degree by other rising politicians, notably Teddy Roosevelt. Around this particular point, he's like, I hate this man, but even I can agree that, you know, this makes a lot of sense, you know.
Any more questions?
I think like there's one bill in particular that, because I think Teddy was a part of the Republican Assembly, and just walk in, and vetoed against it, but then ended up reversing his veto for one of these bills in particular, and it was just, it's pretty interesting. Cleveland in a lot of ways could be considered, I don't know how to properly explain it. He was very aggressively against the corruption, and people saw this, and they were actively on his side, you know, the working man and all of that. So he gained a lot of support from the people because of this, against, you know, Tammany Hall and all of them, and really did his absolute best to try to stop Tammany Hall, and at least neutered their position, if that makes any sense.
This is crazy. Wait until you see Manhattan.
It didn't help too that Teddy Roosevelt was there too, who was also trying to stop the corruption and make things a little bit better. There's this new breed of Republican called Reform Republicans that Teddy Roosevelt's largely been a part of, who wanted to stop all the excessive spending to actually help the working man kind of thing going on. I guess a more modern take would be an actual liberal form of Republican. He and Grover Cleveland and Teddy Roosevelt had to work together, and they worked together very extensively during this particular point in time. Now this leads to the election of 1884. Blaine is the Republican nominee. How Grover Cleveland ends up becoming the Democrat nominee is a little bit more complicated. There were other politicians around this particular point in time that started gaining a lot of popularity and progress. One of these guys was this Tilden guy, Samuel Tilden. He basically was the front runner. He was a nominee in the election of 1876. At least the initial nominee before they chose the other New York governor. But I think he didn't do it because he was sick, like with dysentery or something like that. I don't know. He was sick enough that he couldn't run. Okay. So we're gonna figure out how to do this. So I can chain two. See what Blade's all about. Are they trying to make a Blade movie? Draw one card, the next 2 damage applies to the next card. Confirm.
Exactly what I needed.
Oh lordy. I don't know if I'm doing this right. Let's make you a little bit weaker. Or is this another? Okay, never mind. Good lord, that's a powerful attack.
We will never forsake her. No retreat. Maybe we'll try something new.
No, that wasn't very nice. You think that would stop me? They are being reinforced.
So he wins this election because of a lot of fighting and because everyone wanted to become president. Long story short, is pretty much enemy area attacks will go off. Okay. Boy, you're gonna move over here. So I can't move. Sure, let's just do that. Am I out of the range? I am not out of the range.
That's the spirit. Watch closely.
Knock you back.
I'm skeptical of your chances, but stranger things have happened.
Good job, Blade. Holy hell. He basically wins because everyone's fighting. There's one candidate, I believe, that was even like proposing secession again, and let's just say he was not wildly popular, but still had a lot of pull within the Democratic Party still. So I think that has to be taken into consideration. And Tammany Hall was vehemently against them. I have no idea what I'm doing. Just going for it. But Tammany Hall had a lot of power and pull, but a lot of people within the Democrat convention for the president were basically like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. So Tammany Hall had a bunch of votes, but they were only like 30 to 40% of the actual people that. Okay, let's just end this. But they only had about 30 to 40% of the vote, in which case pretty much everyone just sided with Grover Cleveland on the opposite side, because they'd rather have Grover Cleveland rather than pretty much anyone that Tammany Hall was going to be producing. Now, this is also one of the more interesting campaigns. Blaine and the Republicans are basically saying, well, this lady, or this guy is corrupt and he raped a lady, and then Grover Cleveland's basically like, Republicans are spending so much in the federal government that it's bankrupting the country. Not to mention, it was basically just Blaine's corrupt, and he's a part of this corrupt thing. Cleveland's not going to do anything, and he raped a lady. That's basically what the campaign, in a lot of ways, were ultimately. Both were basically fighting each other for who was a liar, who told the truth, yada yada yada. This was a very tight and very close election. There's just no other way to explain it and put it. I know in several states, because what ultimately wins this election is a lot of the Northeast. New York, New Jersey, Indiana, and I forgot if it was Vermont or Connecticut, but I think they end up going Democrat, and quite literally shifts the entirety of this election. And long story short, by I think it was something like 2,000 votes, a really incredibly low number of votes, but Grover Cleveland wins New York, which has like 35, 36 electoral votes at this point, and that pretty much shifts the entire election and gives Grover Cleveland the electoral majority, and he wins the election of 1884, and we get into his first term as president. What is this? What is this? Okay, that's great. Crap. I don't know what to do. Okay. It's a lot of environmental stuff. So maybe... Well, it did something.
It's remarkable how well Hydra manages to attract new recruits despite decades of ineptitude.
Okay, so that's good to know. Knock your big booty back.
Fragile, but not as fragile as you.
Don't know what that did. You trigger his join as passive and active. Oh. Okay, that's not good.
Farms are for the weak. We are not done with you yet.
A little strange.
Take your filthy hands off me!
No pain. This house belongs to Mother, as you belong to us.
So I have to use.
The entrance, then
And
slowly
redraw this.
your delicious brains. Are the rest of your mother's children so chatty?
Thankfully, no.
Oh lordy. It's not what I wanted to happen, but okay. Can I do that? Does it have to be?
Leave some for the rest of us.
Okay, so yeah, I can just do that. A whip.
Just like old times.
Can I move? I can't move. Can I whip him this far? Beautiful.
First you die, then we eat. You go.
Uh-oh.
We may not be ready for this thing yet. Might be smarter to pull back until we know what we're up against here.
Fill our belly with your tasty fear.
I shall fill your belly with my blade, demon.
This is what
I think this will be the final stake, literally. I guess not? Okay.
The endless search for wealth and power with just a tinge of fascism. Hydra will never change.
Lord, how much health does this guy have?
first.
This is not good. Okay. The boys back up. Sorry, I am very engaged in all this.
That thing has me trapped.
Oof.
Your efforts will never deter me.
Reinforcements inbound. Mother blesses us with power. Mother blesses.
Pretty sure you just have to beat him.
Game over.
Hell yeah.
No escape from me, demon.
Hold up. We don't know what we're dealing with yet.
Hey, big guy!
Spider-Man.
I was in the neighborhood. You know, being friendly. Seemed like you folks could use a hand, Doc.
Please let him join the team.
Jeez, Eddie, what happened to you? That's sort of a horrifyingly terrible new look. The tongue was gross enough, but whoa! Someone is extra touchy today.
We will rip your face off and suck the marrow from your bones.
Always nice to see you too, buddy. So, I'm thinking your friends here could use a little break. How about I take Eddie here for his afternoon walk? Don't worry, Doc. That's just his way of saying he cares.
I'm probably gonna end this part in just a little bit. I'll briefly touch on his presidency. It was all about money. Let's just put it that way. All about the money. There's really just no other way to really put it. At least all about the financials. At this point, trying to standardize our economy was really big. Tariffs. The federal government trying to spend money like crazy that they didn't really have. There was the issue of the gold and silver standard at this point, which wasn't really solidified. Cleveland was always staunchly gold standard. I think he even created an act that specifically stopped the purchasing of silver and wanted to create a more standardized gold standard. He was actually held in contempt at a couple times. So I think they were trying to do the whole tenure of office thing with Andrew Johnson, and he basically contested and fought his way the entire time, tooth and nail, in order to actually stop a lot of the things that were happening. To put it plainly, he was quite literally trying to run the country as the single most conservative president in a very long time. Vetoed so many different bills, which held him in contempt of the Republicans in Congress. His policy was basically, we are absolutely vehemently non-interventionist, and we are absolutely only going to do things in terms of our own personal self-defense. So the things he did put money in were military, for more modernization, continuing the stuff that Arthur had started with the revitalization of the Navy. They made like 4 or 5 steel warships at this time. Again, the continuation of the several amendments. Specifically, a lot of these people wanted to enforce a bunch of the actual civil rights amendments, the 15th in particular. And also just trying to figure out what to do when it comes to the actual processes and power that he could do without overreaching and overstepping. Long story short. But right now, we're going to stop it. We're going to take a quick break and come back soon. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe, and God bless.